month, NASM is giving you free courses. That's right, free courses each month just for being part of the NASM family. Learn about everything ranging from nutrition to strength, weight loss to stress relief, and everything in between. Click the link in the bio for information and to claim your free course before they're gone.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Random Fit. I am Wendy Batts, and I am here with my friend and colleague, Mr. Ken Miller, back from Hawaii. So, Mr. Miller,
you got to keep that on the down low.
You know what? I'm living vicariously through you, so there's no download there. So, first of all, how was your trip?
Oh, you're in Hawaii. What I was going to say? There was sun, there was ocean breezes, and high 70s. Couple hikes in there, so I wasn't totally laying on the beach or by the pool. I got active. Saw a waterfall.
Wow.
I'll take it. I'll do it again next week.
Did you hike up the water, like to the waterfall, like the top, or did you just look at it?
I actually short climb,
Wow.
jumped off, but there were people jumping from like 3 stories up into the water below. I was like, I'm not doing that. I am not doing that.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad to have our conversation today. We are talking about perturbation training, and we are so glad that you guys are a part of this show because, when people talk about perturbation and doing different types of training, oftentimes we're doing this, but we don't even know that it's called anything specific. Or we have kind of taken it out of our bag of tricks altogether, and it really does serve an important purpose for not only, our youth, not for someone that's, my age, but it's very important even for the elderly. So, when we talk about this, Ken, if I said, what is perturbation training, what would you say, bud?
Well, in just regular everyday terms, it's just a disturbance in motion. Or either being in motion or just holding still. What you're trying to do is introduce an unanticipated force, and this force can come in different magnitudes. It can come at you hard, it can come at you soft, it can come at you from behind, from the front, from the side. But either way, the disturbance in the force, every time I hear disturbance in the force, I think of like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Can you imagine if he used, I feel a perturbation in the force?
Yes. Well, hey, you know what? Maybe that could be the next, the next one. So,
the update in the 2025 reboot. But basically, it's just a way of adding some resistance and adding a different, I'd say, a little spice to your workout to where, if you're working with whether it's an athlete or somebody that's trying to just lose body weight. It adds a little something different to the workout. So you can take a traditional exercise, kind of push or pull or use an implement for a common motion that adds a little bit of a shake, rattle, and roll. You know what I mean? So it's just a way of getting the nervous system a little bit more involved and get the nervous system to be a little bit more able and capable of, encountering resistance, if you will, right? And we'll talk about some modalities as we go into it. But I remember first doing, when I wrote an article, a blog post for NASM on perturbation. But when I wrote the article, it brought me back to, okay, well, when did I start doing this or implementing this? At that point in time, they didn't even have a name, right? We didn't say, okay, I'm going to do some perturbation on you, which that sounds a little weird. But when you in a simple example, it'd just be having somebody sit still. They're sitting on a bench, so there's nothing supporting them. And I would have my clients sit there and put their hands right on their shoulders. So their left hand is on the right shoulder, right hand is on the left shoulder. And I'd say, okay, pretend you're a statue. And I want you, just like a statue, you're not going to move. So no matter how hard I push it, and I'm going to have to really monitor as the personal trainer how much I'm pushing, pulling, twisting, turning you to the point where I'm just going to meet your ability to hold still. but I am pushing hard enough or pulling hard enough for you to know that, okay, there's something going on here. So I'd have my clients sit up nice and tall, head above shoulders, elbows up, hands across the shoulders, and I'd have them hold still, pull in their belly button towards the spine, and I would push them just gently. And I'd even add a little bit more to it, to where I'd have them close their eyes and kind of just, kind of pull one shoulder back, push another shoulder forward, or do it at the same time to get them to do a little bit of rotation, even push from right shoulder across, left shoulder across. Either way, they don't see what's coming, right? They just, all they're doing is they're feeling this force, this pressure from my hand pushing them forward, backward. And all they're really trying to do is they're using every single fiber of their being to hold still, right? And, a lot of times that just mimics life, because, an example that you and I, Wendy, were talking about is like, how many times have you just been standing there just minding your own business, and you have kids and I have kids, and one of them just runs up on you, and you don't, they're running full bore, and you didn't see it coming, right? And what kept you from falling over, even though the kid's like 30 pounds? Well, your ability to react, the ability to hold still against this unanticipated force or resistance, right? Which happens especially in competition.
Oh, well, I mean, that kind of brings me back to, a lot with our professional athletes. I mean, I do this type of training very, very often because, I mean, think about this. If you're, a professional basketball player, or even if you're not, you're just playing for fun, you've got people that are trying to get the ball, they're around you, they're pushing, there may be some, cheap fouls that happen. Your body has to know how to react to that. And it is something that you're not planning on, like you can't say, okay, this guy's going to hit me from behind or shove me in the shoulder. And so if you kind of, you get what you train for, you guys have heard me say that so many times, and there's so much to it. Same thing when you're playing, in the NFL, or you're playing football, even for fun. And, people are coming after you to get the ball. That's their job. And that's their sport. That's what they are, trained to do. And so therefore you've got to be ready. So, and it goes across the boards for any type of sport. So hockey and lacrosse and soccer and everything. And so when you translate that into, the importance of how it can help you in your sport, that's one thing. But to your point, in everyday activities, yes, I got a 5-year-old that's crazy that runs like behind me, Mom, look at this. And, and then I've got to dodge monster trucks. I've got to make sure that I'm planted when he's jumping up behind me or on the side of me, because he's so excited to show me something. But the same thing too, even if you don't have kids and you have animals, like how many times is like when my doorbell rings, I have 2 dogs, and it's like you would think I have like a pack at my house, because it's like everyone's running to the door, and I'm like, whoa, and I'm just trying to get there safely. So, because I don't want somebody to take out my knee, So I don't know. There's a lot of carryover.
Yeah. So the way, one way we can look at this, as far as what perturbation is, as we described, it's just an unanticipated resistance or force on the body, and that force can be different magnitudes in different directions. And the one thing I like to tell or talk to my clients about is, especially when their bigger concern is injury prevention and avoiding previous injury, or they plan on upping their activity and they want to make sure that they can do whatever without the risk of getting hurt, is when you look at it and how we implement it, we just look at it like a modality, just like I would introduce you to a dumbbell or a bar or a suspension trainer. It's a modality. It's just something that you can implement just like any acute variable, like you're adjusting sets, reps, tempos. Well, we can also incorporate a variable of an unanticipated force. So if you're not doing some kind of having some kind of resistance, or you don't have anybody there to, hey, wouldn't that sound weird if you're in the gym and he's like, hey, while I'm doing these push-ups, would you mind pushing on me a little bit? Would you mind pushing? Just kind of push my shoulders, kind of push my head right and left, and push it down. That sounds a little weird, but there are tools that are out there that are designed to implement that type of resistance. So one of, just to start talking about equipment now, one of the things that we can look at is equipment like a body blade. Have you used a body blade, Wendy? Is that something that you have available to you?
I use a body blade all the time, especially, you know, when people are working on rehab for their shoulders, strengthening of their shoulders. You know, they need it for their sport, or, you know, if they're just wanting to strengthen their shoulders, because it is super, super hard. And before we go even into more detail about the body blade, because we should have had a whole podcast on that. If you guys are just joining us, we're talking about perturbation training. So have you perturbated lately? And we're talking about the importance of that. I'm Wendy Baxton here with my counterpart, Mr. Ken Miller. And yes, so body blade, super, super cool tool. I use it a lot. And I think oftentimes I don't see it enough. And I really wish that, that people would use it more, because it is super challenging. And for those of you guys that don't know what it literally is this, and I don't know, would you say it's rubber? Like, is it kind of like
it's rubberized plastic. I mean, it's pretty sturdy.
Yeah.
As far as the blades go, but the center handle is primarily rubber, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and you can have your arm straight out in front of you, and what you try to do is try to flap it, and you're trying to get it to like flap like wings, basically, as hard as you can, or you can do it side to side, or I like to do diagonal patterns and adding like single leg squats or different types of movements. And, you know, and as soon as it stops, I mean, you have to use a lot of core, a lot of stabilizers within your shoulders, and then of course your primary movers. And it's a workout. It is hard if you do it right. So
yeah, you know, because again, when it comes to this modality, we're trying to upregulate and get the nervous system to fire up a little bit, right? So, I mean, we mentioned unanticipated force, right? You pushing me while I'm not looking, right? Within reason. But here with the body blade, it's a consistent or constant acceleration and deceleration. So what makes the blade flap is that stop and start as you go up and go down and up, and to repeat that for all those motions that you described, Wendy. And you're using a lot of stabilizers across the shoulders, because primarily you're not going to use the body blade using your feet. It's primarily a handheld piece of equipment. But you know,
I don't know, you can try that. You know, that's maybe that's on the docket. I want you to film a video, put it in between your legs, put it in between your feet, and let me know how that works for you.
Let's get some duct tape. Let's get some duct tape and just kind of tape it to your shoe and just kind of get your foot to just go.
Yeah, that what not to do with the body blade.
Yeah, just make sure everything is clear. How many times would you hit your shin? I would probably say I'd hit my shin on every repetition on that one.
I don't even think I could get it to move, but whatever. I'm not that talented. I mean,
right, right. But you know, as far as incorporating this goes, you can even do things like we mentioned earlier. And again, a lot of the examples are going to be done with the aid of a personal trainer, or maybe you have a workout partner that can go ahead and, you know, add this unanticipated force or resistance. And, you know, something as easy as a push-up. You know, if you like, some of my clients, they love push-ups, right? Once they learn how to do it right, keeping their head and neck in the right position, ears, shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles in line, push-ups get easy because, you know, especially if you do it right, because you are using all the right muscles to control and stabilize. And of course, now we can produce and reduce force more efficiently. So one way you can spice up a push-up is actually just letting somebody do a push-up and then pushing from, you know, let's say from the right rib cage or the left rib cage. You know, you're standing above them, and you can kind of push right and left and even down a little bit. So if you really want to test somebody's core, get them right in the mid back, and you try to push them down, even push them up, so that way they can try to resist hiking or piking up through the hips, even through the legs. And what I like to do with some of my my baseball players, kind of just move the arms a little bit, you know, get them moving and trying to control those shoulders. So again, take a basic exercise, especially one like a push-up, and that could be in any position, right? Traditional push-up being on the floor. You can use a push-up being done on a suspension trainer, and you don't even have to touch the person. I could actually push and pull on the straps, and just holding onto a strap, I can push it across, up and down, and give them more of a three-dimensional unanticipated resistance.
Yeah, and I think another big one when we're doing this is the vibration component. So vibration training is another, key implement that you can use. And so if you don't have like a power plate, because, oftentimes now, because they're so big, a lot of gyms either don't have them, or if they do, they're not utilized as much as they should, because they are fantastic. But you could even grab 2 Vipers or 2 something like that still has the vibration, put your hands on both, and then do, like you said, your push-up, or, oftentimes one of my favorite ones that I do is, again, either single leg or single arm. So I do a lot of unilateral or contralateral type exercises when I'm doing this specifically, because again, they have to control their balance, they have to maintain proper alignment, and then they have this like sphere. So even the hypersphere or the mini sphere, so they're holding on to that. And then I'll have them, go down, try to touch the opposite side of their foot, bring it up overhead or across body, and they have to maintain proper alignment. And so just that vibration, again, think about what's happening at the nervous system, think about the muscles that you're having to use. And so it's not just a recovery implement. You can definitely add it into your bag of tricks of fun things to do with your clients that really does serve a tremendous purpose. Because once again, when we define it, we're trying to think, okay, from your normal, how can we throw you off balance? And when Ken's talking about pushing or pulling or something, we're only using just like 3 to 5%. I mean, you're not like 90% trying to like throw someone off. Like, you want to make sure you keep them in a safe. That's a big thing. It always has to be safe. But I mean, just a little bit of movement, little taps or something like that can activate a muscle that's not supposed to really be activating, and your body has to counteract what's happening with those touches.
Now, I will say that I've been in some team situations where I've had them partner up, especially in football, when you're dealing with something like a contact sport. So, and I'm not just talking football, like you mentioned before, basketball, that's a very high contact sport, a lot more contact than a lot of people realize, lacrosse, soccer, or any one of those sports. If you really watch a game, it is about your body against someone else's body, and who's gonna win the position. So in team situations, what I've had players do is, example of that push-up again, someone's doing a push-up, and I'll have them give them each other like little love taps, like you could like you're just smacking them, right? So get them used to the contact.
If you're going to do this with your clients, you may want to get written consent that it's okay to smack your people, because I'm
not endorsing smacking. I called it a love tap. So it's just something, you just get that little, I know it's maybe coming a little loud on my mic, but you're just getting a little. And if you're in one of those, like a running back position, something, high contact, if you're a lineman, you're gonna get hit. It should really be nothing, relatively speaking, to when you're in the field of competition. But if I got an open hand, nothing where I'm just doing a bunch of rabbit punches on you, getting the kidneys or something. I've got an open hand and you're feeling it, right? And for one, when you're doing something like instead of a push-up, maybe a plank. Well, planks get boring, right? So if you're just doing the whole, all right, we got 60 seconds. One way to make the time pass by, partner up and get your partner to kind of push and pull and kind of little love tap here and there. Again, it's about unanticipated force, right? So just like it's with football or basketball, you don't know the direction in which someone is going to push, pull, grab you, things like that. But to get as prepared as possible in actual competition, this is where, okay, you're actually going to help your partner, your teammate out by getting them prepared. So again, within reason, we don't want anybody coming out of a workout. It's like, I got these big old hand marks, on the back of my shoulder or something like that. But you should try to, push it to where you are on the edges of ability to control and stabilize your body from that vantage point.
For those of you guys that are just joining us, Ken and I are asking, have you perturbated lately? And there is a lot behind perturbation. And so again, when we're talking about it, we're talking about performing movements that kind of throw your body off your natural or normal state. So like if you're in the 5 kinetic chain checkpoints, or you're lined up and you're actually doing an exercise and there's like an unforeseen force that's coming behind you, beside you, in front of you, you're able to maintain what it is you're doing properly, and your body's able to react to those forces. And I think it's super important to also mention, you know, we've talked a lot about different sports and how purposeful those can be. However, you want to think about this. This is super important because right now, you know, when you think about our chairborne society, I mean, that most people are sitting in front of their computers still, even after the pandemic, more now than they ever have. And, you know, the nervous system and proprioceptive stimulus, it just hasn't been there. And so it's important to think about what is it that you need in life? What can you do to be stronger? But it's not just about your muscles being stronger. It's about your nervous system, your muscular system, your skeletal system, everything working together. So therefore, you know, you can be the best you, and you're going to perform better, move better, feel better. And it's fun. And that's the big thing is, you know, sometimes when you're playing around with your clients, they enjoy it because it's not the stagnant, like you're counting and just showing them what to do, like make it fun. And that's, I mean, they keep coming back, and I mean, I'm all about it. Like, you know, perturbation is a big part of my thing. So like, I like it. There's a lot behind it. And, you know, and when you don't tell your client you're going to do something, it's like, okay, I want you to maintain this. And I walk beside them, and then I push them to the side and they fall over. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You know, and they're like, well, what, you knocked me over. I'm like, I told you, you've got to always stay focused. Think about what you're doing. And so you never know when there's going to be, you know, you're in a crowd and somebody's trying to get past you and they tap you on the shoulder. If you're not prepared for that, you could fall. And especially in the elderly, you know, I mean, one little movement that they're not prepared for can be a significant fall, which could lead to a lot of major issues down the line, which, you know, obviously we want to make sure that we're caring for all populations in the best way that we can. So hammer down, and mic drop.
And that, that is a great, that's a great point. I mean, especially like you're mentioning that segment of the population that is older, you know, whether they've got a sedentary lifestyle today or not, it is about their ability to react. You know, can we upregulate and get them to be able to perceive sensations as well as react to sensations sooner than later? And, you know, I know I gave some pretty extreme examples by, you know, kind of giving like a little rabbit punch to the side of the ribs, you know, a nice firm, you know, slap with an open hand. But, you know, some more realistic ways of implementing it. One, like I mentioned, if someone's doing a push-up, you're not going to do this on day one. This isn't a first workout type of deal. This is something that, you know, once you know your client's capable of, what they're comfortable doing, what they're able to control, then we can start to gradually add these unanticipated forces, right? And it doesn't have to be my hands on my client, especially these days, right? You want to watch, you know, we want to watch and be real diligent about how we interact with people. But instead of me touching my client, example I gave earlier, you can hold on to the TRX strap and, you know, hold it onto, you can push, pull, you can lift, you can lower, and give them a little different resistance when it comes to using a suspension trainer. Something else I would do is when someone's using a cable machine, I'll actually hold on to the cable, and without, I'll hold and I'll add some resistance by kind of holding down the cable, preventing them from moving. You know, let's say a tricep extension, pulling down on the cable. I'm just going to hold down the weight, just, you know, maybe a pound or two, and just make it look like, or make it feel like it was a little sticky, right? And then just as quick as I held it, I'm going to let it go and let it move. So that standpoint as well.
Yeah, I've done that. And then I've also, you know, done it with, you know, like if somebody is in, let's say a prone or face down position, you know, I've wrapped different types of bands around their sides, and, you know, sometimes I'll pull up, down, sideways, you know, more to one side or maybe the other. You know, there's a lot of different variations you can do. It's really about how creative you want to be. But I think, you know, it's going to be very important to also mention when you shouldn't do this type of training. So, I think first and foremost, if you do an assessment with your client and they've got poor movement, so, meaning that their feet are turning out, their knees are caving in, they've got low back, discomfort, or, they've got some issues even with their neck, that you really want to work on strengthening the body to try to correct any kind of major compensations, because you don't want to, when there's weakness, you don't want to really focus too much on something that they can't handle at that time. So make sure that you're looking at poor posture, and then maybe, working on really trying to clean that up first. If somebody has really poor reactive, training, so they don't react quickly, and you really want to work on that, that needs to be a primary too before you start doing this. And you want to think about the forces. To your point, I just said start super light, small touches, and then you can start adding a little more force or some more creativity. But if you're having someone use the TRX and they're doing like an upright, or like a inverted row or something, and they can barely do that, the last thing you want to do is start hitting the TRX straps, and all of a sudden now they're trying to control the mini tornado that they've, or I don't want to call it tornado, but whatever it is, like side to side movement, some crazy movement pattern, because then you're really not training them for success. So, just be very cautious with that.
Right.
Words of wisdom.
And you also bring up a good point with, and again, back to your point, knowing what your client's tendencies are. So if you've assessed and reassessed, and again, every workout is an assessment. If you know what their tendencies are, don't go there, right? Just try to stay away from it. To where, like, if you have a case where someone's knees like to buckle in, well, I'm not going to push on your thighs, right? So I might be able to do something with your upper body, in those cases. So it is going to be relative to the client. And as long as you're responsible, you know what the tendencies are, you can stay away from their tendencies that push them into a compensation. But if now I'm doing something to where I have those areas of compensations addressed, let's say if it's a lower body compensation, but I have them seated, where I take the lower body out of it, now I can add a complementing upper body kind of unanticipated force. It just depends on the client. But if you are a personal trainer, or if you are partner training, you're not a trainer, and this is something, after listening to this podcast, you are motivated to add this into your workout with your partner, then have at it. But if you notice that your client's like, what, my back's kind of tweaky today, now is not the time. Maybe, when they're feeling good after they had good rest, they've recovered, and they've prepared and they've done their proper warm-up, and pain and discomfort's not there. Yeah, go ahead and have at it. As long as you don't notice that, okay, well, I notice when I do this, their back tends to arch, or when I do this, they tend to have a low back issue. Well, there is a time and a place. We just have to be responsible, because we don't want to lose our workout partner, right? Because of something crazy or stupid.
You don't. That's your accountability right there. So you never want to lose your workout partner. All right, so I'm gonna do a 4 quick hitter. So I'm going to say, if one thing we talk about, we're talking about exercises, right? We're talking about what you can do with your clients. But as a trainer, or if you are like someone that loves to play a specific sport and you want to know where your weaknesses are, you can utilize, this type of training. So when we're talking about perturbation training, that's what this podcast is about. And you're stuck listening to Wendy Batts and Ken Miller. And we know you're enjoying every moment of this. But when we're talking about this, it really it serves a huge purpose. So not just on a training standpoint, and not how we can, carry over to everyday life. But if you are a trainer and you're really thinking about implementing this with your clients, and you have certain people that play sports, you can utilize this as an assessment tool as well. And Ken, I know you highlighted this in your blog. So, when you were throwing it out there, like, go check me out here. So when you're giving yourself the cheap plug, if I said right here, right now, you have a football player, and how could you use perturbation type reactive motions or whatever in an assessment with a football player, how would you set them up, and what would you look for? Go. Quickly. Well,
to get them set, just both their comments. Yeah, all the things you already said. We just got to make sure, hey, this is not a point of weakness. We're not trying to emphasize weaknesses. We're trying to emphasize strength. So as long as they've earned the right to get that modality, and as long as they've earned it. But the other thing is to just moderate the intensity, and just make sure you know how much, or you get, and it's better to work from low to high and work your way up. So it is a graduation as well as frequency of implementation, just like any other modality. So when it comes to football player, it's a must, but football players are just like any other athlete. They have their weaknesses as well as their strengths. You just have to make sure that you are not on the weaknesses to where they become a threat to their health.
Yep. So with a running back, you could put them in a staggered stance, and like you could add those lateral pushes, and you're just looking to see how is their stability, how's their balance. And I know another one for me would be, like for lacrosse players, for example. So if you have someone holding the lacrosse stick, and the trainer wants to add some different perturbation type motions or whatever, you're going to look from various angles. Are they able to control that? Do they have anti-rotation or rotation type motions? How is their shoulder stability? How are they able to maintain posture? And again, on an assessment standpoint, this is really good information for you to know, because you can see, when you have them holding on to whatever, position they may be in football or lacrosse stick, when they're, in that position in lacrosse, how do they perform? And then, from a soccer player, when we're talking about that, you can have them do pivoting type lunges, because they move in multi-directional positions. They're lunging, they're kicking, they're running, they're changing directions so quickly. And so if you have someone doing for example, a lunge, and you push them, sideways, then are they able to maintain that? Do they have, lateral movement? Do they have excess rotation that shouldn't be there? And so, you think about, as a whole, I know we're going to wrap this up here in a few seconds, but, think about how the importance of it, think about how it can apply to your clients, and how useful this can be. And it's something different than just it is a modality, but this is something you can do. It's cheap, and it's just you don't really need anything, as long as you have permission to touch, and you're touching appropriately and accordingly with the force that you're placing on someone. But it really does serve an important purpose. And, I think that's kind of my key takeaways. Implement it, just make sure it makes sense. Make sure that the client knows that you're going to touch them and that they're okay with it. So permission always, and have fun with it. Your turn. Any takeaways?
And that's the key thing. And that's it. I mean, you spice up your workouts. Again, first of all, make sure that they know what's going to happen. It's like, why are you touching me, right? And and you can even hold a physio ball and use the physio ball, so there's something between you and them. Sometimes I've even used an RX pad, or Dinah's a physio ball, or they're holding onto the med ball, and I'll tap the med ball and not them. So there are ways of doing it responsibly, where again, distancing and things like that are still very much applicable for today's environment. So you got to be responsible. Everybody's got to be in the know, but you have to also just make sure they earn their right to implement this modality. So start off light, and then you can raise the amplitude based on their ability to control. But like you said, Wendy, have fun with it. It could be fun, whether it's purposeful for sport, or just regular Joe that just wants to get healthy and just wants to stay away from back pain. And you're trying to do it by getting their nervous system to fire, right? And that's what you need to have a good, strong core. So, Wendy, thank you so much for all your insights and sharing your experiences, especially on this topic of perturbation. I always have fun. And, now that I've a little time to relax from my last trip, so I had a lot of fun on this recording. Yeah, I'm so relaxed. So we want to thank you all for hanging out with us on this episode of Random Fit. So Wendy, thank you. And on behalf of myself, the National Academy of Sports Medicine, thank you for listening. And if you like what you listen to and want to hear more from us and want a subject matter that's really interesting to you, just let us know. So like, follow, subscribe, download, and we will catch you next time on Random Fit. Take care and be well, everybody.